For this episode of In Their Own Words, we present the account of Thomas Patrick Dillon, who served as a trimmer on Titanic's maiden voyage. Born in Liverpool in 1879, Dillon was 33 years old at the time of the sinking. Prior to Titanic, he had served in the Royal Navy, enlisting in June of 1893. He subsequently served aboard a variety of ships including Impregnable, Lion, Pembroke, Cruiser, Empress of India, Barracuda, Excellent, Orion, Venerable, and Albatross. After his Royal Navy service, Dillon enlisted in the Royal Fleet Reserve before going on to serve aboard several merchant ships as an able-bodied seaman. These included the Cedric, Campania, and Haverford. His last ship prior to joining Titanic was the RMS Oceanic of 1899. Despite his extensive resume as a sailor, for reasons currently unknown, Dillon signed on to Titanic as a trimmer. This was evidently his first time serving as a member of the engineering department, as he later testified, "I've never been down below before. It was my first trip down below." There's been much speculation about why this career shift occurred. Some have linked it to possible conduct issues. During his naval days, Dillon had twice served hard labor, but this remains speculative. Others suggest the ongoing coal strike at the time of Titanic's departure at Southampton may have played a role. The truth is uncertain, although Dillon himself simply stated that, "I cannot get a job on deck." In any case, Dillon signed on to Titanic on April 6, 1912. As a trimmer, his monthly wages would have been £5 10 shillings. At the time, he listed his address as the Sailor's Home in Southampton. Of particular interest, Dillon, along with other crew members, including leading fireman Frederick Barrett, helped clear coal and put out a fire in the forward bunker in boiler room number 5, which had been smoldering since the ship was in Belfast. Coal bunker fires, despite what conspiracy theorists often claim, were a relatively common occurrence on steamships of the air. All credible evidence indicates that this fire caused no significant damage and had no impact on the eventual sinking of the Titanic. By Saturday, April 13, 1912, the crew had successfully cleared the coal from the bunker and extinguished the fire. When questioned during the British inquiry whether he could call it a serious fire, Dillon gave a somewhat non-committal reply saying, "I do not know." That response is understandable and truthful, given that he was a rookie in the engineering department, and this was his first voyage below deck. He likely did not have knowledge of such things. On the evening of April 14, 1912, as a member of the 8 to 12 watch, Dillon was on duty in the reciprocating engine room. Since the boilers in Boiler Room 1 were reportedly not lit at the time, the trimmers and stokers from that compartment were sent to the engine room to assist with cleaning the gear. Just before 11:40 p.m., deep in the heart of Titanic's engine room, Dillon and the crew around him heard the sharp clang of the engine room telegraph bells, an urgent signal from the bridge. What they didn't know was that disaster was already bearing down on them. An iceberg had been spotted. First Officer William Murdoch was frantically issuing emergency commands, hoping to steer the great ship away from doom. Within moments, Dillon's world would erupt in chaos. He had no idea that the night would become a battle for survival, and he'd escape by the narrowest of margins. How did he make it out alive? Stay with us as we hear the story in Dillon's own words. Welcome to the Steam and Splendor Network.
Two seconds before the collision, the engine room telegraph rang. Then we felt a slight shock. The The engines then stopped. After about half a minute, the engines then went slow astern for about 2 minutes before stopping again. After the collision, the engineers rushed to their station. The pumps and valves, Mr. Hesketh, the second engineer, was among them. In the meantime, the watertight doors were closed. Afterwards, one leading from the engine room to the stokehold was lifted up high enough by hand to let us underneath. We went into the stokehold and once there, assisted to open the other doors. An order was given to keep the steam up in the boilers. I cannot tell how long it was kept up. Subsequently, an order to draw the fires was given. I did not assist in carrying out that order. I know the order was passed along to the stokehold to draw fires as much as possible. Following the collision, I proceeded from the engine room to boiler room 1. Then I went through the watertight door into another boiler room, and then from that into the third boiler room. I went through another watertight door to the fourth boiler room. We left the doors open as we went through. I stopped short of boiler room 5. All the watertight doors were opened by us with the handle, but the chief engineer told us not to touch number 5 door as that was finished. He ordered me to open the doors to allow the engineers to get forward to their duties, the valves and the pumps. Having gone into number 4 boiler room, I just knocked about. At 1:20 a.m, we got the order. All hands on deck, put your life preservers on. Before I went up, I saw water coming in forward in number 4 boiler room. It was coming from underneath the floor in small quantities. There wasn't water anywhere else in any of the other sections. I then went up on the aft well deck. There was a pile of lifebelts on the steerage deck, enough for everyone. They were all loose so that they could help themselves. There was a great number of people there. They all had lifebelts in my estimation. They seemed to be steerage passengers. I was on the starboard side of the well deck when I came up, and I saw 2 women there. They were singing out, "Any more women?" And there were 2 more, and we chased them up onto the boat deck. The last boat to leave was on the port side. Prior to the boat lowering away, there were 2 women on the well deck when we got up from below, and we heard the order. The last boat was leaving the ship. "Are there any more women there?" And we chased them up the ladder. After that boat left, I could see there were no others left on the ship. Those steward chaps and deckhands died game, no mistake, sir. One fellow, while we were on the poop deck, said, "Go to the first class cabin bar room." We did. There was a steward in the saloon with 2 whiskey bottles, one in each hand, filling up tumblers on a tray. He said, "Go on lads, drink up, she is going down," and we made for the whiskey. We got our share. I saw Mr. Bell, the chief engineer, with a plank under his arm, walking along the promenade deck. The ship was going down all this time. That was the last I saw of him. He must have dumped himself. I said to my pal, Matty Blake, "What do you say, Matty? There are only 2 ends. There's the fore end, which is underneath, and we will take the other end." I was for going down into one of the first class cabins, but Matty would not let me go. So we passed along to the promenade deck, onto the well deck, and then to the top deck, and there were Dennis Cochrane, John Bannon, and others of our engine crew. Matty said to me, "What about your boots? We shall have to jump for it as all the boats are gone." I noticed one of the chaps who was standing there found a cigarette paper, another had enough tobacco to have a fag, and we had a draw or two while it lasted. There we stood smoking it. I went to the poop. She was getting low in the water then. There were many others on the poop besides myself, including a lot of passengers. I waited on the poop until the ship actually sank. Before she went down, she gave a plunge and righted herself. Afterwards I noticed, before I left the ship, the fourth funnel seemed to cant up towards me. The funnel seemed to fall towards me. There were about 15 of us when she took the first plunge. After the second, there were only 5 of us left. One of these was Mr. Daniels, a first-class passenger. He only had a pair of knickers, a singlet, and a blanket thrown over his shoulders. I think he jumped for it. I stood talking to Johnny Bannon, and we seemed to be the only 2 left. We made the sign of the cross, both of us, for he was a Catholic. "If we are going to die," I said, "it will be best to die gripping something." We gripped the rail, and the next thing I remember, it's awful. I came along, a lot of people groaning. It was too cold, it seemed, for them to cry out, and it was a horrible row. I did not dive into the water. I went down with the ship and shoved myself away from her into the water. I was sucked down about 2 fathoms, then seemed to get lifted to the surface. I had a life belt. I saw other passengers and other people in the water, about 1,000 from my estimate. I got away from the crowd as I was going to die by myself. I said, "Our Father," and "Hail Mary." One young man near me shouted, "Mother, Mother." I was getting a little bit away from the throng when a man who was swimming alongside me clutched me round the neck. I knew, of course, that would be fatal, so I seized him by the throat, and we both went under. When we came up, we were clear, and he swam away. Behind me, there was the horrible volume of the groans, which rose and fell. I can hear it now. It was really remarkable that there was so little clutching. I think a large number of people soon gave up the struggle and were content to die, for the water was so fearfully cold, and there seemed no hope of rescue. When, at last, I got comparatively clear, I swam as though I were taking part in a race. Behind me there was the horrible volume of the groans, which rose and fell. I can hear it now. I know there were some women on board when the ship went down, but I saw neither woman nor child in the water. Swimming on, I came up to my chum, John Bannon, who was lying on a grating. It was not big enough for 2, but I rested my arms on it for a minute. I said, "Cheerio, Johnny," and he replied, "I'm all right, Paddy." Then he told me he had seen a flashlight some distance away and pointed out the direction. I took note of a particularly bright star in the line he pointed out and swam for that, but I had not myself seen the light. As I went off, I cried out, "Well, so long, Johnny." Poor chap, he was drowned. Every minute or so, I looked up to make sure I was going towards the star, All this time, I had not seen a single lifeboat. Soon, I became so numb that I could hardly swim, and my head was so queer I could not see the guiding star. I could see no lifeboat, but when I was almost at my last gasp, I shouted, "Boat ahoy!" on the off chance that one might be near. Fortunately, one was close at hand. My shout was heard, and I was hauled into lifeboat number 4. I think I had been 20 minutes in the water. I was very exhausted when I was picked up. When I got into the boat, I became unconscious. I was not properly right when I came to. I found lions on top of me, a seaman, and a passenger lying on top of me, dead. I was told afterwards that I was unconscious for a long time. I would rather die 100 times than go through such an experience again. I was in the hospital some time after I was taken on board Carpathia. At the inquiry, I should like to have said something besides being asked questions, as I was a sailor for 22 years in the Navy and Mercantile Marine. I was petty officer for 7 years in the Royal Navy, and now I'm a Royal Garrison Reserve man. I had to go as a trimmer as I could not get a job on deck. I'm going away next in the Olympic, Titanic's sister ship, as a fireman.
A special thank you to our supporters on Patreon, including Dean McIntosh, Evan Plumbing, Lucas Sidlowski, Charlotte Zurich, Bluebird Nut, Martin Cahill, Sam Forker, Maximilian Metcalf, Nikki Chan 92, Rachel Warner Sanchez, Leslie Sheldon, Jason Stray, Roadway Wiz, and Snow Monkey.